Gauthaman Ramesh grew up in a world where success had a single definition: top grades, engineering school, and a safe career. But somewhere between the textbooks and expectations, he realized that would be living someone else's dream. What followed was a quiet rebellion, leaving the path laid out for him to build a life on his own terms. We speak about the challenge of breaking away from tradition, the strength it takes to align your life with your values, and how self-awareness and community keep you grounded in the process. This is a conversation about breaking from tradition, not in anger, but in alignment. If you took value from this episode, support the mission. Please kindly subscribe and leave a review. It helps the show grow, and it means that we can reach more men who are looking to take that next step. Thank you so much. I'm Harrison, and this is the Growth Voyage Podcast. Enjoy. Okay, we are live. Gauthaman, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on board. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. And we've connected quite a bit already, and there were some really interesting themes in your story. I think a great way to start off just by assessing the scene. Could you give me a bit of background in terms of your upbringing, childhood, and how that shaped you into the man you are today?
That's a that's a great way to start because you're right. You're right in it. So I'm from India. Currently, I'm like 31 years old, and so I've been basically born into this academic family, and I'm from the southern part of India. So most of my upbringing, all of my upbringing was done within this very prestigious institution called IIT. That's the equivalent of Cambridge and all of that. So I've been surrounded with like a lot of uh, it's mainly academics everywhere you see, and their kids and all that. So I grew up with people who are always scoring your first ranks, your A pluses and all of that. And I was a little different. Uh, my dad was also uh, one of the top professors in his domain and all that. So I had a lot of academic pressure on me when I was growing up. Yeah. So, but I was a little different. I was a lot more into sports. I was a lot outdoor. Though I was not, but I didn't have a lot of pressure from my parents to not do sports or any of those things. But still, when you see and look people around you who are doing the same thing, like you're always judged upon academics and not upon things that you are actually good at. So that was one thing that I was kind of trying to figure out as a kid because I was good at sports. I was good at a lot of things. I was good at studies, but not. I was not focused towards it, because I really didn't care. I just had to get through my classes and all of that. But that kind of, I think, put this uh, mentality in me where I had to do something to be good enough. But no matter how much I do, it's not enough. And and it's not coming from anywhere, right? It's just because people keep asking you. And in India, it's very common that people ask you about, oh, how much did your son score in his exams? That's a very common topic of how you kind of get judged, right? So that's kind of how my upbringing was. Uh, and again, so I couldn't focus a lot more into sports. So I had a lot of things towards academics. I did my engineering. I love automobiles. I love mechanical stuff. So I did my engineering. But still, I had to kind of not take this path of becoming a pro athlete, though I feel like I could have done that. It was very well within my grasp, but the circumstances in India at that point of time wasn't developed enough that people could understand that you can still make a career out of being a pro athlete. It was not there yet, especially in sports like football. Uh, Except only cricket had that path of thinking, okay, you can make money being a cricketer, but the other sports didn't really have that. So it was hard for my parents also to kind of let me do that. So I got into automobile engineering. I got into mechanical. I did engineering. I got a good job, uh, but then there was always this thing in me where I had to prove something, and no matter what I do, it's never good enough. So that's pretty much how I got shaped.
This is super interesting because I wonder if in India there's a big importance placed on the opinions of our parents, right? There seems to be, from the outward looking in, perhaps you can give me a more accurate picture, but from the outside looking in, it seems like there is a big emphasis on the parental decision making and their influence. Of course, you're going to have that in the West as well. We see a lot of that, although I think there tends to be a pushback from a lot of men into their 20s, 30s, perhaps. They start to push back against it. Would you suggest that in India, perhaps it's more difficult to break away from that culture and that influence?
I think overall, yes. In India, I think it's a lot more around not just your parents. It's a lot more about what your relatives think. It's a lot more about what your friends of your parents think, what your circle thinks. So that has like the societal pressure has a lot of implications on how that's taken down on the children. It's I would say most of them are like that. I was not like that. My parents were they really didn't care much about what people said. They were that cushion for me to not feel bad about it. But still, like overall, it is there, and it also shapes a lot of like I think we were talking about this the other day as well, right? Like I think people get into things that they don't really want to do, nor are they really good at. So they just end up becoming kind of mediocre in it, and that creates a lot of unhappiness over a period of time, as opposed to just having the freedom and liberty to explore what you want to do and then go towards it. So, like for example, engineering or engineering is one of those things in India where everybody's an engineer. You have to become an engineer, right? And we have so many engineers that it's not even considered as a great degree anymore because it's very few people who are actually great engineers. Rest of them are just have just done the course. That's about it, right? So it's a lot of people settling for something that they really don't want to do, and that's what's creating a lot of resentment within themselves. The second is also, I think it's it has a lot to do with the kids as well, right? I think there comes a point where you'd want to take ownership and say that if I fail, it's on me. If I fail, I will figure it out, right? I think that is something that people are so scared to do here. I think it's a lot of just fear of, oh, what if you fail? Uh, you're not going to, you're probably not going to have enough money to even have food. So those are the thoughts that keep putting into you that people have a lot of fear of failure, and hence they don't take that leap out of that constraint, saying, you know what, I'll figure it out. It's fine. If I fail, it's on me. So the problems on both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can also see, right, when there are these high expectations set from parents, there is going to be a lot more drive too. And you could argue actually that could shape a lot of people to become very successful engineers. Engineering is
Yeah.
a great example. And so I do like to look at the flip side of these things. I think, especially in the growth, personal development space, we're very quick to blame other people for how we are, but then actually we never actually look at the
Yeah.
flip side of that. And so do you think then what's happening in India in particular, and of course this will translate to other countries too, do you think what's happening is there's a big expectation on them to become an engineer because there's this perception that it's well paid and it will give them better job opportunities, and then perhaps they reach an age and they have this big question of who am I? Why am I actually doing this? And that causes quite a lot of maybe internal resentment and a bit of soul searching, perhaps.
I wouldn't say for a lot of people. So I'll tell you. So the way it happens is that before you are settled in a place and you're able to think of am I really happy? It's more like you get pushed into the next responsibility. A good example for this is, okay, I'm I'm in my last year of school. Now I got to figure out which university I go to. Right? Okay, then now that's sorted. Then before I head into my last year, now where do I get where do I go to my work? When that's done, you just get a good stable job. Then you're forced to get married. And then when you're forced to get married, it's a couple of years. Oh, by your kids. So then okay, it's the kids now. So then I think I feel there are there's a there's a section of people who are constantly running around and they really don't have the time to think because they're just taking on what's next before they've really settled in and like absorbed what it is. Which might work, which is fine as well, right? Because life has to move on and that's fine. But there are, I feel, another set of people who now I'm seeing a lot more are quitting their jobs in their mid 30s, trying to start things up, trying to probably start a gym or trying to start something they're really passionate about, right? So that startup culture is also working a lot, and it's also working in their favor because they've gained so much of experience that when they start something, they're able to actually do it well. So that's a upside of it as well. And then you have, I feel this is a much bigger problem, is that there are your majority of people who are still continuing to do their job as just a profession. That's great at an individual level, but when you're, let's say, at a collective, uh, you know, as a collective goal, it's very hard for us to accomplish anything because, let's say, during a few decades ago, right, like people who are engineers wanted to be engineers. That's why we had great inventions. People who were researching really did want to do research. And that's the reason why we had a lot of Nobel Prize winners and we had a lot of advancement as a whole race in itself. But now a lot of people who are there are probably just doing it as a profession. So I don't know how we're going to push the bar much higher and actually move as as, as a uh, as a whole race to step forward. So I think that is a much bigger picture or flip side of what I see. But yeah, that's just how I feel people are getting segregated.
Yeah, and, as you suggest, because it's come up on this podcast quite a few times already. Are we doing something because we really want to, or is it because it's something our parents wanted us to do, or we think we should be doing it? And I also find this concept very interesting of responsibility, right? Perhaps that's also ingrained in the culture, perhaps in men generally, where there is this sense of pressure, right, to provide for other people. I know men can feel it very, very deeply. Do you think there has been any sort of change generally over there, and perhaps what you've observed yourself in your relationships and the culture where there's a bit more understanding of men, or there's support systems in place, or is it still very much in that mentality of, all right, let's get on with it, yeah, be a man? What do you think?
I honestly don't see the whole be a man mentality or the be a man approach changing anytime soon. At least I'll just speak for uh, like, from what I've seen. Right, I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think probably the only way I see change is something that what you're doing, right? Like build a lot of communities where you're able to open up to a lot more people, or just look at people's perspectives. But I think overall, uh, I feel it's gotten a little bit harder. I think I feel globally it is a little bit harder uh, for men because again, I'm not taking anything away from women, but I'm just saying from a lens of a man, I think it's gotten a little bit harder because there is a sense of, yeah, I want to provide, I want to do all of these things, but then if I'm very uh, if, if I'm very open about it, am I going to be mistaken, or am I going to it's almost like if I get into my role, is it going to be a problem anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like, because it was okay for you to just do whatever you wanted to do with respect to providing, but now you'll have to be a little more subtle about it because it can easily come off the wrong way. And that I feel is a struggle that a lot of people are doing because now you're not able to fully give what you're capable of. and that's kind of holding you back. So it's almost like working on eggshells, you know. So I feel that that boundary is something that some people have got it figured out, because again, with their communication and all of those things, it does work. What your boundaries are and what is not okay. But I think uh, people who don't have the communication, it's almost like walking on eggshells, right? And I also think with respect to the whole mental health scene, for men, like we were talking the other day, right? It's very zero or one right now, as opposed to, is your problem big enough that it is going to be fatal, or are you going to do something to yourself? If it is, then let's talk about it, and we'll again take an approach of a very medical approach of saying, oh, this is going to be all right, or just let me know if you feel depressed, or here's what you need to take for feeling depressed, as opposed to much bigger questions, or much underlying problems which might pile up later on as, like, what is my purpose anymore? Or why am I feeling low once in a while when I don't even know what's wrong? When I'm doing everything right, why am I feeling low? These are still not spoken about a lot of. I think even within the community of men here, it's very hard for you to find people who you can actually have a conversation with. I mean, you will find a lot of people. Like, it's hard to find them, but they are there, but it's not a very general thing. So,
I feel as though people can only really relate to you or ask these types of questions if they've met themselves that deeply, right? So a lot of the time, if you haven't gone through, I mean, don't get me wrong, we're always struggling in some capacity, but not everyone feels that deeply or explores it as deeply as others. And so I think a big struggle for a lot of men all around the world is that if people can't relate to what you've experienced, if they haven't explored themselves that deeply, then yeah, like it's not going to be a big priority for them. They're not going to be able to hold that space. So I like this idea of building more community, surrounding yourself with more safe men and feel comfortable talking about this stuff and having
yeah,
this sense of community. I think that's super important because otherwise it's just bottled up. And I think it's
yeah,
especially in this country. So I can imagine expanding on what you've said, the traditional approaches to mental health. It's let a lot of people down in this country.
yeah,
It's very surface level solutions. You look at
mm,
very
yeah,
fixes, but they're not really fixes. They don't go to the
yeah,
root cause of a lot of issues. And
yeah,
whereas a lot of the time, people just need connection. They need time with themselves. They need to just understand the principles of what's going on. And so yeah, there are some misconceptions in this space. I want to take it back to your journey then. You mentioned you've set the scene already where generally speaking people go down a certain path they think they should go down. There's this provider mentality, which by the way I think is a great thing to have, although sometimes we can put our own needs to the side because of that. So
mm.
did you follow the mold for a bit? And if so, how did you break out of it and go down your own path despite the cultural influences there?
So, I think that's a great question because I had to kind of plan this out entirely, because it had to be in a way where it was not reckless, or it was not something that uh, people would think you're irresponsible for. So obviously my parents I had to have this talk with my parents. It's not like I could take a decision and I could do whatever I wanted, because they still supported me in a lot of ways, right? And fortunately I would say I had like really great parents. I wouldn't have asked for anything more. Uh, so the first step for me was to kind of have the conversation of saying that, you know what, I don't think that a traditional job is for me. Like, that's probably the first time I opened up and had the conversation. I think it was with my mom where I it was one of those things where I didn't understand why, but I just kind of had this really bad breakdown. Uh, and it was more around the fact that I just went to my mom and said, I'm not happy. Like, I'm just not able to be happy anymore. So once I said that, I think I had a couple of conversations with mom saying this is not something that I want to do. I can't see myself doing this forever. Then I had the conversation with dad as well. And then he just told me one thing. He was just like, so for him, he wanted to make sure that I was doing what I want to do for the right reasons. It's not that I am unable to study, that I am capable of studying, but I want to do something else. If that is the case, then you're fine. But if you're doing this just because you're bad at something, then that's a problem. Right? That was his whole mentality. So the deal that we had was you do your college, you get a job, and then you quit your job and do whatever you want. But just don't do something because you can't get a job. So that was his whole thing. So you show me that you're capable of sustaining yourself, then you quit that the next day and do whatever you wanted. So that's exactly what happened. I did my college. I got a job immediately, and I was there for a couple of months, and I quit the job, saying, you know what, I got the job. No, I'm done.
Well,
And he held his
it
end to
didn't
the
take
bargain.
it didn't take you long to go down your own path. I love
Yeah, yeah,
that,
didn't
and
didn't at all.
I think that's a good point as well, right? Because I do think jobs sometimes can give us a good foundation, learning skills and opportunities. So I do see the value in giving it a go. And for some people, it does work out super well. You see a lot of successful engineers and they go off and they're very good at it. They can provide for their family and they're happy with that. So I think it is good to try it. But then, as you've suggested, be honest with yourself. If you're not happy doing it, if you're not in alignment, then there's there are other options out there. And I don't think a lot of guys, even in the UK, I don't think a lot of guys see another option. It's not even in their belief system. That thought doesn't come across their mind. It's not processed. It's just like, okay, this is the way and this is the only way. But no, this is one way. It can work, but there are other ways as well. So I love that you went off and quit pretty much straight away, but you gave it a go as well.
I think I feel very thankful for that right now because see, it also tells you a lot of see if you're able to finish something and if you're able to do it right and get a job, which is your end goal. And if you're able to do that in something that you do not like, then it gives you a lot more of confidence about the capabilities of doing something that you can actually. So I think for me, that was a measure of my own capability of saying that, you know what, if I could do this, which I did not like, then I'm definitely going to excel at the things that I like. So uh, looking back, that was probably a good thing my dad did.
And this is what I found too in a lot of conversations with men. They'll be good at something, but they're not that motivated to do it. And a lot of the time, you see this come up in the self help space as well. It's how can I be more motivated? And I think the job becomes a lot easier when you actually enjoy what you're doing, the mission that you're working towards, and then you're not really relying on motivation so much because it's already part of your part of your mission and what you're working towards. So you leave that, and then what are you thinking then? Is that a bit of a scary moment for you, I presume, because it sounds like you always wanted to go off and do your own thing. But was it a bit unpredictable? And also, what gave you the belief, really, to go on and do your own thing? Where does that come from?
So before I quit my job, uh, I was lucky enough to see. It's one of those things that they say, right? I think there is a way you get somewhere, and then there is a way of moderation after you get there. But when you're getting, it's all about hustle, right? So the only confidence that I had was I could do a lot of hard work. I didn't care about the time, I didn't care about the amount of effort I had to put in, and I kind of enjoyed that. Like it was just my way of saying it was my way of running a 5K, a 10K, a 15K or 20K. Like, oh, can I do 8 hours of work today? Can I do 10 hours of work today? It was almost like a flex of saying I had my day job, but I could come back and still work for 4 hours on my project that I want to do on the side, right? So as I was doing my current job role, I was building a base for what I wanted to start. So uh, and I used to go to my college where I was doing my degree, finish 8 hours of school, come back, record videos for YouTube, record videos for Instagram, do a bit of online coaching for fitness clients. Uh, and that became a whole habit of me being active from 6 a.m. in the morning up until 10 p.m. in the night with no breaks. Yeah, I did not have a social life at all, but that's fine. I didn't want it. So this confidence of me being able to put in a lot of work was, I knew I had it on my side. And for some reason, I believe that the more harder you work, the more, uh, you know, uh, the more results you're going to get out of it, which now I don't really think so. I think there is a fine line of channelizing your energy. But I think for that time, it was good. That was the only thing I had, that like I could outwork people. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yes, it's funny how it shifts, isn't it? Because that was the belief that I had. It was right. You work hard and it pays off. And I do think that mentality is helpful when you're younger to an extent. And we talked a bit about this expectation from parents and actually how it can be good, I think, to have those principles in place because you want to be able to work hard. I know in my case, it was a big blessing for me to be able to work hard and then see results out of it in my studies and again later on in various endeavors. I think as you get on and the more I explore and delve into this subject, the more it springs to mind or comes to my attention that actually, okay, perhaps we can attract things in a different way and by living in alignment and doing the things we enjoy and ensuring our body is regulated. And so, yeah, I do wonder whether perhaps a shift in mentality is necessary once you get to a certain stage. But then at the beginning, perhaps it's all just part of the journey. Maybe, yeah, really fascinating. In your case, then, because you had all these creative ideas and you mentioned there the fitness world, what was that journey like then? Because I imagine when you're going off and doing something that's perhaps not as traditional and it's a very unique route, what's coming up for you there? Because I imagine that's where a lot of limiting beliefs can come in, even though you are confident you can work harder than everyone else. I feel like when you go into working for yourself or doing something that's different, suddenly all these thoughts can crop up, right? So talk to me about that journey too.
That period was the start of Instagram almost. So, and YouTube as well. I'm talking about slightly more than a decade ago. Fitness was still something that was new to India. It was mainstream in a lot of Western countries, but it was just coming into India, right? You didn't have to have a gym membership. It was probably an add-on if you wanted to look good. It was not a part of your essentials at that point of time. Uh, and I wanted to do fitness because I thought I wanted to have that early moves advantage because I knew that fitness was going to come up at some point of time. And the more sooner I get into it, it's going to help me further on. And that was my way of living my dream as an athlete because I couldn't become a pro athlete. So I was like, this is something that looks close to it. I can work out and I wanted to do bodybuilding. I did bodybuilding for a good amount of time and I wanted to help people become bodybuilders as well. So that was the whole idea of how we started. And I was this crazy kid in college, vlogging and walking around. So I used to get made fun a lot because who's the guy talking to? Like there's nobody watching. There's no like he has 10 views, 20 views, or whatever. So, but I saw this shift happen within a couple of years. Like everybody who made fun of you is now coming and asking you for advice, saying, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? Then that's when so for me, what struck was someone who is doubting you or making fun of you today, there is a there's a very high chance that that person is going to support you later on, or probably see the benefit of it later on. So if so if someone's making they just can't see what you can see it. It's as simple as that. So you can't really blame them. It's just their perspective. So for me, it's more around you just have to wait a little bit until they can see what you can see. Then it's all fine. So that's yeah.
Well, this is a great point, and I think belief is so important in this instance, right? Having the belief that you will create something, even though nobody else can see it. And there's something called tall poppy syndrome, right? Where the collective will see somebody doing something different, and it's very easy to project onto them and think they're the crazy ones. And yeah, it's a part of the journey, I suppose. I've discussed in previous podcast before, what is the journey of becoming a man? Like, where's the initiation? Is it when you turn 18? Is it when you go through some sort of wake up call? Like, at what point do you become a man? And I think in this instance, there is perhaps that lonely chapter, right? It's part of the journey of becoming yourself. When no one else perhaps believes what you're doing or believes in you, and you've just got yourself and you keep on going. I think that's where again you're building up a lot of resilience, and you just and I think the way to look at it, I know this was mentioned in a previous podcast too, is you mentioned, okay, there's a fear of failure deeply embedded in Indian culture, and I'm sure across many others as well. And one way in which you can look at it is, okay, is this worth failing for? Do I
Mm,
believe in this so
mm,
much? Am I enjoying this so much that, okay, you know what, if it doesn't come
yeah.
together, it was worth it because of perhaps the end result we're looking for, or because of the mission? And certainly in your case, it seems like, well, yeah, of course it's worth it because I'm doing the thing that I'm actually passionate about. I haven't gone against the grain. And if this doesn't work out, then I can maybe go back. I'm sure this wasn't an option for you, but for some people it might be, hey, if it does mean I have to go back and work a quote unquote normal job for a while, then hey, I'd still be where I am now. So I think that's a wicked mentality. As you're building this, then the fitness industry, the gym stuff, are you looking towards that future then? Are you thinking, okay, this is going to get me to where I want to be? Or were you very much in the present? Were you embracing it? Did it become just a way of life for you?
It was always about what it could be next. And it's a great point that you bring this up because I'm currently kind of working on this right now because I find it very hard to be in the present. And that basically means that you really don't reap any happiness out of it overall. And that's something that I'm currently working on like a lot. Is that it was always about what do I do in the next 6 months, or am I reaching towards this goal that I want to be in the next 10 years? And sometimes this goal keeps changing because you learn new things. You just want more, and the industry keeps growing, or maybe two gyms was enough. Now you need 10, 15, 20. You need a chain of gyms now to satisfy what you think is success for you, right? And as these keep growing, you're not really content with what you have right now. And even yeah, you can do this exercise of thinking that like 2, 3 years down the line, uh, I wanted to be right here, and now I'm here right now. Yeah, it is happy. It's happy for that moment, but it's very hard to be in the present because I feel that no matter how much you love the process, when you really start fixating yourself or your worth to the goal, then it's very hard for you to start enjoying the process. Like the process ends up becoming work. Did I did end up slowly losing interest towards training people. I ended up losing interest towards learning more about fitness. And it became more around how do I grow? How do I grow? And that maybe could lead me into learning more about business or learning more about marketing. So then I became like something that I was passionate of becoming a fitness trainer, but now I'm this weird mix of random things that I don't know how do I identify myself with. So then you don't enjoy any of these processes at all. Uh, and if you don't get to where you want to be, then that's even
Mm.
more sad. So
It leads to the question, doesn't it? Why am I actually doing this? It's a great point because we start off, again, in this instance, doing something we're passionate about, creative about. And actually, this is a reason why people don't pursue what they enjoy doing creatively. I know a guy who's a very talented photographer, and he will take photos at events, and they're like, "Oh, wow, are you doing this full time?" It's like, "No, I've got my corporate job, but if I did this full time, would I enjoy it as much?" So I do see the benefit of that, and I do see how people can find meaning in their quote unquote normal job, boring job, for lack of a better term, some people may call it that. I think you can still find meaning in that if it is able to fund your passion, and you can differentiate between the two. I think that's a great point, and I'm really intrigued by this idea too of not getting too attached to the goals. Getting attached to the goals is what leads us astray. It's what I think leads us down this very egocentric vision, right, of wanting more, looking to possess more. And this is a conversation I had with a chap called Ash on the podcast, and he said every time he's got a idea to grow his business, he really reflects and he thinks, okay, why do I want to grow this? What upgrade in my lifestyle perhaps am I actually aiming for? I'm being very specific about it. But when we haven't got that plan or a reasoning why behind it, I think that's where we can fall into that trap. And I've experienced it myself. It throws you off. It throws you off your path in a way. Your decision making is very different, because if everything that we do, 95% of our mind is ruled by our subconscious, right? So even just getting attached to the goal, I think, can infiltrate our decision making massively. So talk to me about the growth of this idea then and where it led you later on, because I presume over time, naturally, you're going to make mistakes, right? I think we should be looking for mistakes, almost looking to fail, whether it's at a small scale, larger scale, even better, because that way we find out more answers to get to where we want to be, right? And it's without learning those lessons, I think that's where we can get stuck. So talk to me about overcoming those challenges and where that led you later on.
So the minute I started this whole journey of, I'll call it as being an entrepreneur, because the idea was to start a few gyms of my own, right? The idea was to start something that was not there in the industry. So at that point of time, personal training studios were not a thing at all. It was very rare. It was very rare to have studios that operated only as personal training spaces. So I wanted to get into that because me being a personal trainer, that's what I wanted to do. And slowly, I am sure that the minute you open a business, you have multiple things to take care of, especially if you're the only person running it. So facilities, marketing, all of that stuff, right? Like, so this quickly made me learn a lot of things because I didn't have much time. So, because if something went wrong, I didn't really operate out of a big seed funding where I could like sustain myself for 2 years. I could sustain myself barely for a month if things went wrong. So so it was almost completely bootstrap, right? So I knew that things could end at any point of time. Like I could wake up tomorrow. If all my clients leave, I have to shut shop. There's no way I'm sustaining for the next month, right? So I think that was one thing. And then slowly as we expanded, that's when I kind of started to realize that this is not something I really want to do. And I could see the quality dropping because I didn't want to be a trainer myself anymore. And then it reflects on my job as well. So that ended me thinking that, okay, maybe I'm more focused towards expansion. Maybe business is my thing. I want to focus more on business. Uh, so then I kind of sold my gym to a bigger studio and I took over their uh, growth and business part of it. And luckily, that's when COVID happened. So like again, that was extreme wild luck where the minute I sold my gym, that's when COVID happened. So I was like, I kind of got out of it. So that was a good clean slate for me. So I've been very lucky to not face any big failures. But I've also, so since it was a clean slate, then I was very conscious to myself saying, I started this journey of being a good person trainer and doing what I love. And I ended up hating everything I did. So maybe it's time for me to get into a job and just get back into the love of doing what I want to do, right? It was just training people, just getting into fitness, right? So, and then at that point of time, jobs didn't look bad. I was like, maybe there's nothing wrong with doing a job. If the whole point is doing what you love, then if I'm getting something where I exactly love and I'm getting paid for it, why not? Right. So that's when I moved into a role of basically building a fitness business for someone else. But I can just look at things without having any risks and just do what I love doing. Right. And that turned out really well for me for the next 5 years of my life. I was doing that. I was very successful because I had no risk. I had no like attachment of myself into it. I could just do what I wanted to do from an outside lens. I think that really helped me to learn a lot with respect to what I love, what I don't love. Not doing like I said, right? I think every decision that you take, you have a lens of why behind, and streamlining things to grow in a way that you want to grow, as opposed to just doing whatever it takes to reach, and then you'll hate the whole thing. So I've been very lucky to have not have any failures, but I think this was the journey of where I am right now. And now I'm questioning myself if I still have to do this, or maybe it's time for me to get back and grow things or start things the right way. So that is the phase of life I am at right now.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I love this approach that you've taken generally too, right? It sounds like there's obviously been a lot of reflection there and really figuring out what you want. And I think that we can all take a lot of lessons from that. I'm intrigued to hear at this point in your life then, you mentioned there before that men need community and that's an important part of the men's journey. I certainly agree with that. Do you find that you've found good community now in your life, or do you still find that it's tricky to connect with like-minded people?
I have really good like people around me right now where I can actually have conversations and get clarity, or not validation but clarity. You know what I'm saying? I think it's very easy to get validated. That's not what you want. You want something that is probably questioning your thought process, probably questioning your decisions, and then you need that lens of you know what would someone who you trust do, or that's how you get light. And I think this has been built over a period of time. It took me almost a decade to build a close group of 4 to 5 people who I can really trust. And obviously it has a lot of give and take, right? Like it's not daily communication. It's not like going to the bar and drinking all the time. It's none of those things. And these are people who I know for a fact that I don't have to talk to them every single day. I can call them after a year and be like, hey, you know what, this is what's up. What do you think? And I know that I'm going to get
Those are the real friendships, yeah.
a reference, yeah. And yeah, I've been very lucky with that. I've been very lucky with the people in my life. Uh, but yeah, I think it also depends a lot on the kind of habits that you build, right? I think it massively has a lot to do with that. If you're someone who you're quote unquote doing just the things that probably you are supposed to do, like I don't know, work on yourself, go to gym, maybe be controlled with whatever you're doing, sleep early, like wake up early, do all those things, right? Like I think you organically build your circle. You don't have to go looking for them because there are already so few of them that it's very easy for them to latch onto you. It'll just take time. That's all. I think I meet people in the randomest of ways, and they've held on to me for the rest of my life. It's very weird.
It's funny, isn't it? I do resonate with that. When you become the person or closer to the man that you want to be, I think naturally you're going to attract more of the same energy into your life and people will be attracted to you. And naturally, I think people will fall off. I think it's very natural in terms of our lifespan for friends to come and go. I think we'll probably get loads of different people entering our lives at different stages. So that's a good point. You mentioned something there about the difference between validation and clarity, that we don't want too much validation. What do you mean by that?
When you let's say you want advice, right? You want to know what to do, or you're stuck at some place. 9 out of 10 times, you already have a decision in mind that you've taken, right? Maybe there's something that's leaning more towards it. I feel the worst thing that can happen at that point of time is talking to someone who probably just wants to validate and show that they are thinking along the same lines of what you're thinking. And hence, this is illusion of, oh, we're like-minded people, we can become closer friends now, you know? So I think that is probably the worst thing that can happen, as opposed to someone who,
Like yes men.
uh, I didn't get you.
They're called yes men. Yeah. Or like people who are always agreeing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yes, yep, yeah, yes, man, yeah. So I think that is the worst thing you can happen because you are already the reason why you want an advice or you want an opinion is because you are not sure about what's going to happen. You know that there's a risk involved, and you're not sure if you want to take it with respect to what you want to do. So I think it's just multiple layers of asking why. And if you are not going to answer those whys to yourself, maybe you need a second person asking that because maybe they will catch you. If you can lie to yourself, it's very easy to lie to yourself, but it's very hard to lie to someone else who knows you really, really well, right? Uh, so I think it's just wise. A good friend is just supposed to ask you wise.
Mm,
You know, like
yeah.
just three, four whys, and he or she will understand. Where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So
That's a wicked point because I do believe a lot of the time when we're asking for advice, it's not really advice we're looking for. It's approval, really. And we just
yeah, approval.
we don't really trust our own decision making, perhaps. And sometimes even just talking to someone, it's not necessarily an answer that we're looking for. We just need to talk to someone, and then I think that
Yeah.
creates a lot of clarity rather than someone sort of projecting their ideas of what you should do because it's all unique. And
Mm,
I I see this a lot in the men's space as well. Yes, it's important to listen to other men and accept them as who they are, but then we also have a responsibility to call other men forward as well to become a better version of themselves. So I think there's a big difference between asking for help and projecting our own or just dumping, you know what I mean? Just dumping stuff without taking any form of accountability. Accountability, responsibility, it's super important. And so if I was speaking to another guy and he's telling me about his experiences and he's not using I statements, for example, then I think a good approach that men can use is actually to say, hang on, why are you talking about this person and this person? Yeah, it doesn't matter if you've gone through a breakup or whatever things happen to your boss, whatever, it's always, I've reacted this way, or you're describing the situation. Okay, what part did I have to play in this? Okay, I didn't react very well. And then because this is the catalyst for change, when you start asking why I have taken this action, why did I allow this person into my life, that's when your belief system starts to expand, your life starts to change. So I think that's a really great point that you mentioned there. We need the right type of men in our circle. And yeah, as you've suggested, it might take a lot of time to find your tribe. But I think it's important that we trust that they are out there. Your people are out there. You've just got to keep on going. And this is why when we're breaking out of our old habits and our older lifestyle, before we get to where we want to be, there's going to be a bit of a lonely period. And it's in that lonely period where I can certainly relate to it. You think, oh, maybe I should go back to the old crowds where our values don't align anymore because you do feel a bit lonely. There is a loneliness problem. And it's in this area, again, we're talking about this potential rite of passage for a man. I think this is where you just keep on going, figure it out. If you can go to a men's circle, surround yourself with good men during this process, if it's not a coach or whoever it may be, then I think that's fantastic. But if you are alone right now and you're struggling to find your tribe, that will come. I think there is that opportunity there. And I think that group of men who are in that middle zone is actually quite big. I think there's a big proportion of men who are in there, they're looking for their people, but they haven't quite found themselves yet. It's a challenge. So I think that's a really great lesson from what you've picked up too.
like adding on to what you said, I think the right kind of friend will always ask you, "What did you do?" It's not about if let's say there's a breakup. It's always about it's rather than saying, "Oh yeah, screw that person." Like, that person wasn't right for you. Instead of saying that, it's always around what did you do to get there? What did you do? I think those are the kind of friends you need who ask what did you do first, and then you have to justify yourself saying, no man, it's not me. Like I did this, and yet it didn't happen. Then they're like, okay, fine. Now you like me. Now let's talk. I think it's important to have those people in your life.
100%. You need people who are going to tell you how it is, big time. Really
Yeah.
important point. And I think generally speaking, I think your story is super inspiring just because you have broken away from the mold and you've come out the other side, you've pursued what you're interested in, you trusted your intuition and it's paid off for you and you've learned a lot of important life lessons along the way, which is really, really cool. I do finally want to touch on because we talked about the cultural influence before. I'm intrigued to hear because I've got some Indian friends who mention the relationship aspect. It can be quite challenging sometimes, where you might fall in love with someone, but if they don't have your parents' approval, then that's a really challenging moment, right? Of course, this will happen in other cultures as well, but it's certainly in the Indian culture seems to be a significant factor, right? If the parents don't approve of your partner, or they perhaps want you to get married quite young, I think that can have a certain impact on a man. So, yeah, based on sort of your experiences or what you see over there, do you think that's still a big challenge?
It definitely is still a big challenge. Like again, um, I've been lucky enough to have come from a background and from a place where it's a major city, so you don't see much of these things happening. It was still a struggle. Like it was still a struggle because there's just so many things, so many layers in India. There's languages, there's religion, and then there are castes inside religion. There are so many things. There are these layers are getting lesser and lesser, I would say. That's definitely happening, right? And like in most major cities where people are well educated, it's not a lot. It still happens. It's not a lot. But however, I think it's a very complicated dynamic to understand. Like it's because there's let's say if you go to tier two, tier three cities, there are still so many dynamics that it's very hard to break out of it immediately. And it's also not right for me to say, you know what, you shouldn't worry about those things because it is just so deeply tied down with family and everything else that it it's not something that I've gone through, so I really can't talk about it. But however, for most cases or for most people listening to this podcast, right, uh, it has, I think, at at this point of time, it's very important for you to build your own values, right? I think I think this is something that uh, Jordan Peterson talks about also, right? Like I think there's one school of thought where these are right, these are wrong, and then there's another school of thought that says you make your own values, but at least you stick by it, right? And so I feel it's here in India, especially. I think you need to really be sure about what your values are. Like, is this something that you want or not, right? Uh, and then make your approach towards it. Because see, if you're someone whose values are going to be around, oh, I'm not going to marry someone outside my religion, then you probably shouldn't be dating anyone outside religion at all. Like, why get them into this whole mix, right? So I think it's very important for you to know your boundaries and take those values and then stick to them no matter what happens. Then you can fight for them. So and hopefully these values are what I or most people in the world think is right, that all these things don't matter. Hopefully that's what people choose. But then again, I think you have to make your own values. I feel the more the more the world is growing, it's very hard to it's the right and wrong is becoming very gray, you know. So I think it's very important for you to have your own values. Yeah.
Big time, and this applies to all ways of life, especially navigating relationships, not just romantic, but I think friendships as well, right? When you can know what your values are, what you stand for, you decide what you allow into your life. So I think the two, values and boundaries, are very much intertwined. When you don't know what your values are, how could you possibly know what your boundaries are? What are you going to let in? And where's your energy? Where's your energy going? How much energy are you giving to this person? I know this was a big learning curve in my journey where I was giving a lot of time and energy away to people, and then I'd build resentment because we didn't think the same way or they didn't support me in certain ways. And that was again my projection onto them. How could I expect someone to change? It's up to me to go, actually, hang on, this isn't aligned, even though I quite like this person, or we might get on in certain areas, but yeah, you've got to know that. And I imagine, especially for a long-term relationship, you've got to have the same values because it's a solid foundation. When you have that solid foundation, you've got a stronger core, and you can tackle the other things more easily. So I think that's a wicked point. So simple, so important, so easily forgotten. I think so.
Yeah, I think that's spot on because I feel see, everything changes. I feel values can change as well, but that's something that doesn't change that much. I think people pay a lot of attention to things that you can learn and change. An example for this is are you great at communication? That's something that you can work on. That's not a fixed thing that you come up with. Or are you how compatible are you with someone? That's something that you build over a period of time. Like for example, let's say you talk about like sex, how compatible are you? That's something that you can like build upon. But people pay a lot more attention towards this as opposed to values which you hold for like probably forever. Because if that is not something that you can build upon, because these things probably will fade, but in the end, if values are unmatched, then it's not going to go anywhere. That is, I feel that's the foundation. Then the rest of the things are like, hey, how do we figure this out? What do you like? What do I like? How do I do this? So
Yeah, makes total sense to me, brother. Love that approach. What we'll do, we'll move into the closing traditions of the podcast. This has flown by the way. I think this
yeah.
is I can't believe it's gone to an hour already. But yeah, the first two questions are asked by myself, the host, and the
Mhm.
final one is asked by a member of the Growth Voyage community.
Okay.
The first question is a song recommendation.
That's a that's a good one, but Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd.
Fantastic. I know quite a few Pink Floyd fans in my life, and they've always said very powerful tunes. I need to
It
take more
is.
time to listen to them. That's the sign I'm getting. The second question is a book recommendation.
Okay. I Hands down, I think the first book, if you want to read, if you're just getting into self-help, and if you feel that you have a lot of imposter syndrome, or if you're just trying to please someone, there's No More Mr. Nice Guy. That's, in my opinion, one of the best foundation books out there because it's a very deep book written very in a very simple way, very powerful.
Yeah, what a fabulous suggestion. That was the book that gave me so much insight into my own journey. I was trying to tackle the nice guy syndrome, but I didn't know what the nice guy syndrome was. So I was just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, and yeah, it breaks it down really nicely. And I think certainly making that discovery, putting a label in it, okay, the nice guy, it just tied into my own work so nicely. So yeah, fantastic suggestion. We'll certainly put both of these into the description. And it's funny thinking about it as well. It seems like the nice guy, the more I delve into this work and the more I speak to people about it, I think there are a lot of nice guys out there. There's so many.
Oh, there are, yeah.
It's a huge challenge, I think, for a lot of men. And a lot of the time I think it does go unnoticed. But when you change that about yourself, when you change, well, I think it's the awareness, first of all. When you have the awareness, then you can do something about it. But a lot of the time I don't think the awareness is there, and it's so ingrained in our society, being the nice guy, people pleasing. But I think once you overcome it, it's a lot easier then to notice how much you see it in society. Definitely. So wicked suggestion. I wonder if, since you mentioned it, was there a point in your life where you thought, okay, I'm no longer a nice guy, or I'm no longer exhibiting this, or did you find that it was just a long process?
I think I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, I feel like that is always this thought of you that wants to do that first, but then you have to always think that this is just me being a nice guy, you know, like this is, and in a way, it's in a lot of times it is manipulation that comes out as being a nice. It's a lot of things, right? Like I think it's just now I have to put this filter of saying that am I genuinely being nice or am I doing this just for myself? So, and then it comes. I don't. I have a feeling it's not going to go ever. I just have to be self-aware about the fact that it happens. Also, I think this adding on to it, maybe this is something that I'm not. I'm sure you would have already read it. If not, this is a great book as well that I read a couple of months back. It's called The Way of the Superior Man.
Mm,
It's by David Dida. If I'm not wrong. Yeah,
mm,
it's a beautiful book.
yes, yes, a brilliant book. I'll put that in the description as well. I think it was one that I had to reread several times because I think when you read it quite early on in your journey, you might not fully understand a lot of the concepts, but it is a brilliant book. And it really, I think a lot of men, if I were to, in fact, if I were to subscribe, make it mandatory for every man to read a book, I think it would be those two, to be honest with you. I think if you want to create a society full of strong men who know their values, they know how to treat themselves and women as well, how to lead their life, how to be a leader. I think that's a wicked suggestion, and it was a great point on the nice guy stuff too. And I think this ties in with a lot of our wounds when we're young too. A lot of the time, it's not about getting rid of them, but it's okay. This is a part of us. How do we integrate it? And as you suggested, when you become aware of the nice guy stuff, it does get a lot easier. But like you said, it does. I think it runs very deep sometimes, and sometimes you won't even realize that you're people pleasing, and you really have to go down. Even the other day, I've met a nice group. I found a great place to work at locally, and so I'll go there, and I find myself there's a lovely group of people who I've met there, and we have very interesting, deep conversations. But I've gone there to work, and sometimes I'll
Mm.
find myself I get into these conversations, and I'm like, no, hang on, I need to put my foot down here. But then the nice guy, he doesn't want to interrupt, especially if
Yeah,
someone's being vulnerable
yeah,
and deep. So
yeah.
it runs very deep, and there's so many different examples of it. Even timekeeping as well, always being late for stuff. Okay, if you're being late for
Mm.
something, why is that? Have you not given yourself enough time? Are you overpromising on the time? Why are you doing that?
Mm.
Because you want to fit within
Oh,
their
that's a good one.
schedule.
I didn't think of this. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, mate, this is a big one, and even now, I'll notice if I think there's any chance I could be late for something, I will consciously make a choice to tell that person in advance because I'd
Mm.
rather give myself that blanket than to go,
Mm.
okay, right, and then I'm rushing around and then I'm not in alignment anymore. So if I'm rushing around,
Yeah.
and this is how deep it goes. I'm rushing around. I could delay it by half an hour, whatever it may be, but no, I've got to make this time. I can't
Mm.
mess this guy around. And then I'm rushing around. And then rather than being present and enjoying my walk back, I'm okay, I'm rushing. And then I'm projecting onto the outer world because I'm rushing past people and you're it's no longer in alignment then, and you've thrown yourself out of
Mm.
alignment, which I believe is just clarity, peace, and enjoying the way you're living your life. You're throwing yourself out of that, all to make this other person on the other side of a call. This is just one example to make them more comfortable. So this is what I
Yeah.
mean. It runs so deep, and it's a constant journey. But I think the awareness that is there is the critical piece, because we never stop growing. We never stop growing. It's always a journey, but it's knowing when you're being hit with those lessons, when you're being hit with those life experiences, I think is super important, and especially in all types of relationships, it can crop up. So yeah, wicked, fantastic suggestions. I really, really love both of those. Definitely check them out. They're in the description. The final question is by Graham Matthews, who says, this is interesting. What was the worst advice that you've ever received?
I think it's do what makes you happy, or do whatever that makes you happy. I feel. I think the reason I say this also is because when you say that, you start prioritizing yourself first, right? And I think sometimes it works. It's fine. Uh, but again, it depends on what your values are, and if you take value from creating a net positive or net addition to to the world, right? Then you're not really prioritizing yourself anymore. It's not about you. It's about uh, making decisions that align with your values, and sometimes, usually, they're not going to be happy for you, right? Because you have to do the hard things. It's you have to be comfortable being unhappy. I think happiness is just overhyped, in my opinion. I think it can happen once in a while, but I think you just have to be comfortable with not being happy and doing things that will not make you happy. Just because I feel they're the right things. That's just what I feel.
I agree with it in the sense that, yeah, when we chase happiness, this feeling, I think that actually does the opposite to us. So we'll be chasing a state of being, whereas we can really access that right now. And I also agree it's by doing hard things where we get the most joy out of life. I don't think it's happiness we really want. I think it's joy. And I've studied this
Joy.
quite a lot because I think joy is a lot more peaceful and neutral. And I was always kind of
Yeah.
chasing the highs, but it's that just
Mm.
sense of joy. It's like you're doing meaningful work, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're enjoying the process. Ties in with our conversation about the goals as well. You're not getting too attached to the goals. Okay, when I reach this goal, I'm going to be happy. No, I'm finding meaning in this work, and it's challenging, but there's joy in the challenge. Certainly, it's a good clarification, because obviously it's the meaning you apply to that question. Because in your journey, you
Mm.
actually didn't
Yeah, that's
you kind of have done, you haven't done gone down the
yeah,
traditional route. You've actually gone on and gone after what you believe will make
yeah.
you more happy. So I suppose
Mm.
in your instance, then, is it more, do you think it's just a use of terms? Maybe it's okay, do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be do what makes you feel aligned, perhaps do what's in alignment, maybe.
Yeah. True. True. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was more around do. I don't think you should do whatever that makes you happy. Do what makes you happy as long as it's aligned with the values, but don't do whatever makes you happy. I think that's you know.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's an interesting discussion. Yeah, I might put that on my LinkedIn to see what people think about that. Do you think you should do what makes you happy? Yeah, so many questions from this one. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you if they're interested in the projects that you're doing, the work that you're doing, but also just connecting with yourself?
Uh, thanks for having me. I'm super happy that I could have this conversation with you, and I really hope it adds value. Overall, that's the outcome of this. Uh, you can find me on Gman Rides, GMANRIDES on Instagram, or Gman Superfit, GMANSUPRFITT. So one is the fitness page, one is my off-road dirt biking page. But yeah, I'm active on either, and yeah, people can connect with you there.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll put all of these in the description. And yes, it's a good point as well with the outdoor environment that you spend a lot of time in as well, your creative outlet. Just give us a bit of a breakdown of the content you show in there because I've had obviously been exposed to it myself. It's very cool what you're doing in terms of motorbiking and stuff. So what could people expect on there?
So this is something that I was that you spoke about. This I started this page because I wanted to purely keep it as something where I can just put content out without expecting anything out of it, and that grew to something that I didn't expect at all. Like it was people like the idea was just to have an outlet of me riding my dirt bike because I used to be a motorbike racer a long time back. I had a bad accident and I got out of it, and now I just want to ride dirt bikes for fun. And that turned out to be super well received. That now I host workshops to teach people how to ride rallies, how to ride hard enduro, which is basically taking a dirt bike and riding on very tough off-road terrain. So if you're someone who's interested in riding your motorcycle or your adventure bike on off-road conditions, you can find a lot of content that can help you or teach you to ride your bike in a better way. That's the kind of content you see there. But really crazy upon how something that I just started out of pure passion turned out to have a much larger following than my fitness page. So very weird.
This is what I find fascinating because I've seen this as well with Alex. He started just making content about cars because he loved cars and just seeing him go after his passion. Now I think he's up to or about to reach 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, secured his first brand deal. And it does make you think, when you do the thing that you're really passionate about, that energy is going to be put out there and people will be drawn towards that. And I think separating it from the work is like our discussion. It naturally creates opportunities and abundance into your life. So I think that's certainly an inspiration too. Plenty of inspiration from this episode, brother. Thank you so much again. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me, man. And all the best. And I think you're doing great work. It is much needed work, in my opinion. And like, I'm really looking forward to see a lot more episodes so I can learn a lot more from it as well.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.